today we're working on the Ford Transit again. It's got a belt squeak which we're going to try and resolve. So I'll just try and get it started and see if she'll do it. I mean, it's just typical that it's completely quiet now. So this is the 2.4 TDDi engine, and the issue with the squeak on this, I know you couldn't hear it, which is a shame. It's just slightly warmer today, and it does it mostly when it's cold. But we're going to remove that there, which is the tensioner. Come on, focus. That tensioner's got some play, so we're going to replace that. And then we're also going to replace this idler here, which I suspect is probably the main cause of the issue, because that one there was definitely the worst. All the rest of the pulleys seem okay. Even this belt isn't really that old, but while we've got it off, we're not going to reuse it. We'll just pop on another one. We'll start by just spraying some here down with a little bit of WD-40. Just try and get a little bit down there on the back. And then, probably don't really need to with this one. It's covered in oil anyway, but we'll do it anyway. Makes me feel better. I'm just going to break loose the idler first. There we go, leave that there for now. Now what you do is you get your ratchet down there in the tensioner, and then you pull it all the way over like so, and then with your other hand you just pull the belt off. You can see there's like no tension on it now. And then once you pull it off, just let it flop down. We'll be pulling this one here out, and then we're going to put on our nice new one. If you struggle to get your socket out of this little groove here, get a pry bar and wedge it between the two pulleys when it's all the way back, and it will hold the tension on for you, so that you can get in there without everything moving around. And now, it's a little hard to see, but there's a bolt just here where my finger is. It's covered in oil. That's the bolt we're going to undo next. So the bolt on this tensioner is a 17. Oh. It's pretty tight. I've got quite a long bar to undo this. Usually I hold this ratchet's really old. I usually just hold one hand on the end of it to start flopping about this. But yeah, you get the idea. Just loosen it off. Once you've loosened off this bolt the rest of the way, there you go. It should come out like that. I always find these a little bit of a pain. They start to move around and then the ratchet just starts to turn, so it makes slow progress. So what I like to do is just use my little electric ratchet underneath and just buzz that the rest of the way out. This one here is a 17, the other one was a 14. It's a 17 there. What? And there we go. Retrieve it. So now that you've removed them both, it should look something like that. And your new tensioner kind of goes inside this little gap here, and there's two little dowels on the back that you need to locate. Get that in there like so. And then you just keep turning it, and then eventually you'll manage to locate it. For anybody that's curious, this is where the two dowels are, and then you've got your centre hole there for your bolt. Now obviously this bolt is not tightened down, but I just wanted to show you the orientation of the tensioner while it's locked. in relation to where the pins are. So from the outside, if you just try and line up that hole with this little little bracket that holds on the fan pulley, that should roughly be where you need to be so you can get the dowels engaged. I always engage the threads of the bolt by a couple of threads, and then while the bolt is holding it roughly steady, I just push it in and then turn it at the same time, and eventually I always get it. Doesn't take long, it's pretty quick. So now we just need to tighten down these bolts and torque them down. Okay, and then there we go. There we go. That's snugged up now, and then we'll torque that down. Hard to see just now, but this little hole in here is where the pulley goes, and we'll just tighten down our bolt here, the same as we did the other one. This is a 15, and then we'll torque this one down as well. There we go. Now we'll torque that one there down as well. Now I just need to tighten this up to 48 Newton meters. There we go. There we go. It's not super tight, very good. And then the one at the top we'll torque down next. Just need to torque down our idler now at the top. Also 48 Newton meters. Getting close now. There you go. Awesome. That's it. Now we just put the belt on. So you just slip on your belt. The tricky part really is over here. After it comes off the crank, it comes up over the tensioner, down to the alternator, up over the power steering pump, and then goes underneath the idler. Obviously the bottom part goes over the fan pulley, as you can see, and then the top part of the belt comes up over the, just comes up over here over the injection pump. Is that the injection pump? No, it's not the injection pump, because the injection pump I believe is in there, and then it goes down underneath that pulley. So that's the belt routing. Pretty simple. Before you start it, just relieve the tension slightly and just give all of the pulleys just a little wiggle to make sure the belt's on there, especially on these flat-sided ones. They can end up being too close to the block, so you just want to make sure that they're all sort of, basically when you first start it up, it's not going to instantly fray on something or throw the belt off. Don't know if that noise comes across, but this is why we replaced these parts. It's basically the bearings in these are worn out, they lose their grease, they start making a lot of noise, and eventually they just come apart and fly off, which is pretty common on big fans. Usually it's the alternator that goes, or one of the tensioners or something like that. So in order to do this, these are the tools I used. I used my pry bar, I used my 3/8 torque wrench, I had a 15 and a 17 3/8 socket, I had my 1/2 inch breaker bar which I used to break loose the bolts, also a 15 and a 17, then I had my 3/8 inch with an extension. I just like to use the extension to get into the tensioner easier. You can also do it without an extension, but you will need a flex head. That's it. Quite simple tooling really. Obviously the parts you'll need will be a new idler, new auxiliary belt, and then the belt itself. This one here actually isn't really that old, but I just preferred to replace it. It's got, you can actually see it's covered in oil. So I'm also addressing some oil leaks on it today, so they won't be, the new belt won't get contaminated. But if you do have an oil leak and that's why your belt has deteriorated, you want to sort those at the same time as well. For anybody that's interested, that is the part number of the tensioner that I got from SKF. SKF I also got the tensioner from, and then I got this Melee belt It's just a 7 pk. It was actually a 2710 I had on here before, but the 2713 is working fine as well. This is just the amount of ridges on the belt. This is the length of the belt, so it's 2,713 millimeters long. This is millimeters, that unit. So a couple of millimeters doesn't really matter, it's just taken up by the tensioner. I wasn't fussed about that. It's not really quite the right belt, but it works fine. So yeah, there they are if you needed them. And if you do give this job a try, then by all means let me know how you got on. I don't really know if it shows in the video, but the engine's running much quieter now. Much nicer, no more squeak, no more knocking. Don't accidentally leave your tools on top of the engine now.